Hello, my name is Joseph Rorie, and I'm with the Merriam School of Common Law. In the other video, we discussed quite a bit of words. We're just going to add a couple more today so I can actually explain all this. I was being awful short in between those words, trying to get them all in. Pretty much altered a lot of my thoughts there, trying to just move forward. So we're just going to add two more words, then we're going to give you the nutshell conclusion to what's going on and how this affects. And then in future videos, we'll always be bringing up what's going on here. It is the problem. So we're going to do Commonwealth, what a Commonwealth is. And most states call themselves a Commonwealth. Some of them actually label themselves a Commonwealth, but also a state and a Commonwealth is synonymous. And so by definition, if you're a Commonwealth, let's go by the same staff of people just a year before they decided to defraud everybody. An established form of government or civil polity, or more generally a state, body politic consisting of a certain portion of men united by compact or tacit agreement under one form of government and system of laws. This term is applied to the government of Great Britain, which is of a mixed character, and to other governments which are considered as free or popular, but rarely or improperly as to an absolute government. A commonwealth is properly a free state, a popular or representative government, a republic, as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Making clear that the republic, of course, the old definition of republic, and or let's say at this time the normal and unchanged definition. So here in 64, this little combination of people formed this definition here. Number one is an established form of government or civil polity, or more generally a state, a body politic consisting of a certain number of men united by a compact or tacit agreement under one form of government and system of laws. They're missing a few things that could help that explain it, but we know what gear they're going, so we know what they mean by one government. But let's go to the second term. The term is applied to governments which are considered a free or popular, but rarely or improperly the common good to an absolute government. The word signifies strictly the common good or happiness. Now, notice they left out the republic. They left out Massachusetts being a republic plus being a state, which by all the other definitions scrambled into all these new definitions. If you're living in 1864 and you're being educated with this and the future to come, this is what you're going to conceive. The Commonwealth is broke back about like the word state is. The only other word right now today that will explain a lot of history about this and how important this is delegate. Now, delegate, basically we know that a congressman, by strict definition, is a delegate. And we want to know what a delegate is. So in 1863, you've got a person appointed and sent by another with powers to transact business as his representative, a deputy, a commissioner, a vicar. In the United States, a person elected or appointed to represent a state or a district in the Congress. And of course we know what a Congress is, the true meaning of Congress. And now get this, because this is probably what we want to center in on when we just move up a year. In the Congress or in a convention for forming or altering a constitution. I'm going to repeat that before we go over here. It is, in the United States, a person elected or appointed to represent a state or a district in the Congress, or in a convention for forming or altering a constitution. See what all they knocked out on that one. A person sent and empowered to act for another. A person elected by the people of a territory. Well, that's a good change, isn't it? Over here it was a state. Now it's a person from a territory. Catch this, because actually not as clever as they thought they was. A person sent and empowered to act for another. A person elected by the people of a territory to represent them in Congress. I don't even know today of anybody in these territories that actually gets to send a representative in Congress, to be in Congress. They're not Congress, and they won't be. So it's very important that we look at this way they worded this, that not only is it states anymore, but it's territory that can do all this. It says where he has the right of debating, but not of voting. Now, none of this existed here. The created stuff here is what we're talking about. Now, what we've got to look at here is perception, conception, conclusions. You know, the language of words, what they mean is how we understand. I mean, I could tell you that I saw a green car drive by. And if we alter all the directions of the definitions of this, we're going to end up wondering, like if I change the definition of car to truck, the green to blue, and drive to fly. Well, we could have a heck of an image in our mind if what we are now redefined words and be using the words that should be used, but you have a different definition. Now, in 1823, this is more than likely the instigator of truth. John Taylor. He literally opened the door to everyone, because at the time we were actually practicing in a national format. We went over that in the last video, how that we were not a national. And only after the war did they even use terms like the national constitution, the national government. These kind of phrases were exchanged, and basically I just like to say falsified. It's more distinctive of what it really is. But you had also a famous lexicographer by the name of Joseph Worcester. Now, Joseph Worcester, to give him a lot of credit, he's about as equal to Noah Webster as he was. And of course, even during that period that the Merriam Webster had begun, he had just got started on Joseph's story. He had a few coin-sized type dictionaries back in the 50s. I got a few, but I'm trying to think of their dates. But it wasn't until 1860 that he actually did his full work. And he's the one that introduced us to pictures in the dictionary. So Joseph Worcester had a what is called the Dictionary Wars, because of course Merriam was getting upset that they wasn't being as popular. They was having to divide their works. And there was deans of all kinds of colleges accepted Joseph Worcester just as much as they would Noah Webster. There was no real true distinguishing of the two. They all argued, the literati's of the time argued who was best, whether it was the Websters or Joseph Worcester. Now, they accused him of trying to steal their work, and you know, they never did prove it, but you know, it stung, okay? Get popular, you might have been guilty, but it goes away. But everybody says, yeah, but he probably did. Well, the problem that we do have is in 1864, we do know that Joseph Worcester didn't change his definitions. Now, Joseph Worcester died in 1869, so his other dictionaries up to that time did not get changed either. But somewhere around 1870, there's been some slight changes. Nowhere close to what the Merriam Webster's done, but by this time, Joseph Worcester's works were gold. I mean, it was probably one of the least selling books of the time, probably, by the time that the government got in on backing up Webster's. Inside the government printing office, they had a sign that absolutely stated, "Use Webster's." And there's more reason for that, because Joseph Worcester sure didn't have these new definitions. Now, when you look at these new definitions, I want you to understand one of the biggest points that prove that this is a total conspiracy is that in 1864 only the American people received the falsified definitions. When London got its 1864 edition from the Webster Company, their 64 edition carried the old definitions. In 1865, the American people, on their new roller coaster of words and swinging around to see the new words for the day. And so they, of course, again, only the American people received that falsified definition. Of course, the American people gets them from here on out. And say it was 66, 67, 68, etc. It was not until 1877 that the Webster Company, and I have that edition showing the title page where they're claiming they're correcting their dictionary, needing corrected, implied, to coincide with the 1864 edition. And so there you go, you open it up and wow, look at all the falsified words. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary is sort of a mysterious thing here. When it was coming into works, and it's very possible that Noah Webster needed to go ahead and get the new definitions over there, because word was out that they had been compiling this idea about an Oxford English Dictionary for some years, and it was finally in work. So I would think that they was hoping to send the new information in. And pretty much Oxford English Dictionary did go that route. Well, only the American people up until then. That is why there are some 1864 dictionaries out there that does not have the falsified definitions. But all the English-speaking world got the old definitions except for us, the Americans. That's why we have got to understand why we are where we're at and why these words mean, and distill in our mind, instill our mind the false goals that we have as far as a patriot. And so when you look at the definitions, you will know that if you're wrong in defining a word, you're misusing it, and sometimes by mistake you do it right, but it's important to understand what we've got here. Now, the Constitution has certain words in it, and you want to understand that the word Congress is in there. The word federal is not in there. The word state, and of course citizens need to be defined, and what is a citizen. And in the future we'll discover the things about civil rights versus natural rights. And so we're going to end up with understanding that we've got a long road if we're going to do this. But truth is what we've got to stick to. And you know what? Being lied to and defrauded all these centuries, century and a half, that's got to be something done with it. I mean, I'm amazed that judges, lawyers, they're not even aware of this. And whether they're ever innocent or not of what they do, they're still got two choices of what they are doing up there, those so-called officers of theirs, is that they're either ignorant to the facts, and everybody else is collectively just as ignorant, so there's no way to learn, or they're just outright know but defraud you. And so we've got to take this on. The law dictionaries of the time, they were very slow with this. They did deplete quite a bit, so they didn't have to say so much. But even in the Bovier's pre-Civil War dictionary, you have federal explained, just like Merriam Webster and them did. Even up to the 1877 edition, it was sort of still there, but you could just see where they were pulling back on statements that would give impact to what's been said. Now, in modern times, of course, all right, we got that for sure, of that a federal means national, etc. So, what we're going to do in the future is we're going to go over these words, not just them over and over, but we've got other words that we want to bring out, especially with the law dictionaries. The word public, mistrial, jury, and citation, for instance. These words right here, you're going to find in the future, we will be bringing these out. But for today's lesson, I want to keep it down to 15-20 minutes max. And I want you to refer back to the first video to get the definitions. Maybe you get on the internet and find your own dictionaries. But keep in mind that every 64 does not have them. I've got probably about 3 that does, and probably about 4 or 5 that don't. And if they did, they hid it somewhere else. For instance, this 1864 edition here don't even have E pluribus unum in it. So that's why I lost it. Like, where did it go? I just assumed I'd read it before, so it was no doubt one of the other 64 editions. And it appears there's several little differences, like one that had all the falsified words, but E pluribus unum is not where it belongs in there. If they've hidden it somewhere else in there, I'd like to find it, but I did explain to you what it did say and the difference. We're going to discuss the Second Amendment in the future, what martial law is, the truth behind the Second Amendment. I think we got a lot of concepts that we got to get out of the way to understand that Second Amendment, and whether or not you even needed one. Now, you know, you as an individual don't need a Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was taught in the older schools, and all the those that wrote expositions on the Constitution pre-Civil War stated clearly that that was, of course, for the militia, but was for the protection from the government. It wasn't for protection to protect yourself while grizzly bears after you or anything. It was Second Amendment put in there so that the states would maintain their militia and that they would never be disarmed, the state. Now, you as an individual, there's no clause necessary. And we'll get into that in the future. Thank you, and if you need to email me any questions, that would be at dueprocessexplained@gmail.com. Appreciate it. Have a good day.